Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. In this series, we're aiming to help business owners, business leaders, and fellow coaches by sharing our experience and the experience of our guests who've coached people all around the world in all of different sectors and industries that you can imagine. So, very little more to say other than do please now sit back, relax, and enjoy this edition, and look out for a special offer for our loyal audience at the end of the programme. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Coaching Conversation. And today I'm joined by Dan Roberts, all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. And our subject today is going to be, I'm absolutely sure, a lot of interest to a lot of people. Dan helps leaders improve performance whilst at the same time improving their well-being. Dan, welcome to the Coaching Conversation.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here, Graham. I'm looking forward to having a great conversation, obviously talking about topics that are near and dear to my heart and yours as well. So looking forward to it.
Dan, how have you got to the point now? How has your journey got you to the point where you now advise leaders on leadership, on change, and in particular, how do you bring well-being into that particular service?
Sure. Thanks for the question. It's something that it's like anything. It was an evolution along the way. I knew clear back, and I won't bore you by going into way back when, but when I first started college, I knew I wanted to help people, but at the same time be in the business world. So once I got into the business world, I was always focused on how to take people and companies to the next level. I liked building people and coaching and guiding people and lifting people up. It just was my passion. And I found a way informally to start helping companies through change as I grew in my career. And then it actually became a formal thing of leading change when change management became a big vocation. And then as I kind of really sharpened my teeth in that industry, I had to do a lot of coaching of leaders who had to lead change and navigate change, and also obviously leadership development for people that were emerging leaders and needing to learn how to navigate more change and disruptive and uncertain times. And obviously, we're in a lot of that right now. So my focus when I decided I wanted to go on my own, I had worked for over 30 years in the corporate world. I said, I want to start focusing on helping individuals, not just companies, help themselves make changes that can help them see real, genuine growth, get past stuck, move themselves forward. And that's what brought us here today.
And how did that move into well-being for the individual? How did you, first of all, we'll talk about tools later, but how did you actually combine that with the conversations, the coaching programs that you were delivering?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm old enough to be from the school of, hey, if you're going to be a leader, if you're going to be a true owner of your job and your company and your role, you have to sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. And one day I came up with this line out of the clear blue because I was burning out in my own career and saying, after a while, sacrificing becomes suffering. It's no longer just a once in a while sacrifice to be a leader. It's you're suffering all the time. And I noticed through my career how many times I saw leaders that seemed to be constantly in a stressed out mode, flying by the seat of the pants, always putting out fires, very reactive mode, and not having much of a balance of life. But yet at the same time, I noticed they weren't as effective as they could be. And to me, there was a connection there because then I had several great leaders that I saw were very calm, very calculated, very methodical, very strategic, and seemed to be intentional, organized, and structured. Yet at the end of the day, they turned it all off. They had a good family life. They were very present with their family, coached sports. They had a good quality of life while still being a good leader. And so that made me want to connect the dots just because I myself struggled with finding that balance of trying to be a good leader and having a good life and be healthier at the same time. Too many people sacrifice too much to be a good leader.
Yeah, I'm a similar vintage. I can remember that. I can remember conversations if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen and all those
Mhm.
sorts of stuff. Yeah, I recognize it all. What would be a typical client for you now, Dan?
Yeah. You know, I was just talking to a client this morning, and it's something I've seen. I would probably tell you 80% of my clients will say, you know, I'm trying to be a more effective leader, a more impactful leader. I just can't get there. I'm busy putting out fires, being the problem solver. I'm constantly being in a reactive mood and getting so much thrown on me. I'm overloaded and overwhelmed. And yet I hear from them that their leaders want them to be more strategic. And it's also a lot of times their bosses that are telling them to be more strategic are the ones that are throwing more and more work on them. And so they feel like they're just caught in this constant quandary, this cycle they can't get out of. So a large percentage of my clients are trying to figure out how they can be effective, how they can be healthy at the same time, but how do they make the changes that move them from that reactive manager to that strategic leader, if that makes sense?
That makes a heap of sense. Yeah. So, so what's the answer then? How do you help
Yeah,
them do exactly that?
yeah. Well, I'm a firm believer. I call it the optimization approach. I have a model I call the C change optimization model. And the C, SEA, is actually an acronym. And the letter S also represents C, but SEE. It's how do you see your work? So you have to change how you see your work. Then E is how you experience your work. And then A, the SEA, C change, is how you approach your work. Because what people do is they go, hey, I want to be more strategic and intentional and have a more calm leadership approach, be more, have better EQ, more resilient and more poised. And they read a quick article and go, okay, I need to be able to do that. I have my aha moment, but it doesn't stick. So when you talk about creating true behavior change that leads to habit change, you've got to hit it from these three angles: how you see your work, how you experience it, and how you approach it. And one of the things I believe in is you can't optimize yourself using that sea change framework unless you create the conditions and the factors that'll allow you to do that. And to start out, basically, it's how can you be more strategic and more intentional and calmer and focused in your day if you are always going in with the idea that you're going to be constantly reacting and putting out fires and all that? That's what it is expected of you in your role. It's the culture of our company. It's, I think my boss needs to see me hurried, and that's, they got to change how they see themselves and go, no, I'm going to be more strategic and intentional. And that starts by three big things. And it seems very unusual to make this connection, but I say it's got to be tactical. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. So, what do? You have to create more space in your day. And what I mean by that is get up earlier. If you've heard the famous book, The 5 a.m. Club, if too many people start out their day rushing to get their kids out, set up for the morning and get in their car and rush to work and jump on the computer, immediately look through emails and start getting overwhelmed, look at social media. I said, no, make your day a little longer so you can be calmer in the morning. You can move around slower. You can be present with your family. You can start to win the morning so you can win the day. And then at work, create space in your calendar. And I have this tool called the time and task management optimization tool where I help people go, okay, how do I create more space on my calendar? Meaning meetings and all these things that take up your day that make you feel constantly overwhelmed and overloaded and reactive. You've got to find a way to reduce that so you have space on your calendar. Then the third is space in your mind. There's a famous meditation app called Headspace, and the whole concept of it is when you meditate, you're trying to create space in your mind, clear it up, get rid of a lot of noise and all that. So my belief is that when people optimize their work, their factors, the conditions of their work, how they have space in their day, more space in the calendar, more space in their mind, it creates the opportunity for them to slow down, be able to think better, be able to innovate more, be able to be more creative, and be just a better leader because they're more present and can help their team, but they're also breathing better, they're calmer, they're more relaxed. So at the end of the day, they can turn it off.
And once you've engaged with a client and they grasp the changes that they need to make,
Mm.
how long does it typically take for those changes to really become the new habits and the new ways of working?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate that because we all know everybody wants, so many people want to change, but they want it to happen fast. And I talk about those aha moments that don't stay, they're not sustainable. I know a statistic that, what is it, 87% of people that have New Year's resolutions by 2 weeks have already failed at them. That's why they call it, what is it, the fail Friday.
Yeah.
Um, when someone starts working with me, I make sure they understand you are building new muscles. This takes practice. That's why I call it practice. It's progress, not perfection. So you're practicing, just like they call a doctor, he's got to practice. You're still practicing. So what we do is we say, okay, let's talk about one thing we can change to alter how you go about your day. And that'll be several sessions that we'll talk about that. Then we go, okay, let's do the second thing. Then let's add and start building compounding momentum because people will bite off too much. What do they say? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And they get overwhelmed and then they get stressed and they feel embarrassed and upset that they can't change. They're not allowing themselves to be successful. So when I'm working with a client, I say, okay, depending on how many things you want to change, each one is going to take several weeks for you to go from faking it to make it, where you're telling yourself it until it becomes organically in you. So, what is it they say? A new behavior takes 3 to 4 months. I believe that, but I believe you can do it earlier if you've got support, like a coach or a therapist or whatever. So my goal when I meet with clients is typically it'll be a 5 month program, and I'll say, let's pick out 4 or 5 things that you're wanting to change in your world, and we're going to step them through the engagement, one per month, and compound and add and get their momentum without overwhelming them.
When you're working with these executives, these leaders, and they're
Yeah.
that's particularly at the beginning, but they're setting out to make these changes, does the way the organization react to that get in the way, or does it help?
Well, I love that question too, because obviously I can tell you've been around the business world. And what I mean by that is those same leaders that will tell their director, a VP that tells their director that reports to them, hey, I want you to be more strategic and, more focused and make sure you're providing real value and don't go off in all kinds of directions and be caught up trying to deal with a million stakeholders. Those same leaders will keep adding stuff to the plate of their report that they want to be more strategic and intentional. A lot of times organizations, and when I talk to my clients about this, I always say, you have to have the courage of your conviction to say, I am going to be more calm, collected, intentional, strategic, focused, and poised. I am not going to be at the mercy of my organization because a lot of clients feel like, well, it's our culture and it's expected of me, and especially if they're in certain functional roles. And I would tell them, nope, not true. And they say, no, no, you don't understand. That's what it's like in our kind of industry. And I tell them, I worked in multiple industries and I saw people that could do it calmly and be that methodical, strategic leader. And I saw the reactive, overwhelmed, overburdened ones. And I never saw their bosses tell them, you need to be reactive and overwhelmed and burdened. That's how we want you to work. It's up to you to do it, but you have to, part of that is manage up. When you got the organization that's throwing stuff at you and stakeholders, I always call it throwing it over the fence, work that they don't want or they can't do that they say, here, you need to take this. There's a lot of things you got to do to go, no, I'm going to control my environment as much as I can. I'm going to try to take some strong approaches, intentionality of making myself be calm and cool no matter what goes on around me.
Does that include their own delegation, the way that they manage their own teams, and where the things that they think they must do personally, or the things that they need now to perhaps increase the delegation, as you put it, throw more stuff over the fence to other people? How do you think that fits in?
Absolutely. I told you about that tool, the time and task management tool. One of the big aspects of it is how you delegate. So many of my clients say, yes, I need to delegate more. And my bosses tell me to. Same boss that told them to be strategic. And one of the things I tell them is, or ask them, are you a perfectionist? Yeah. Do you think you can always do it better than your team members can? Yes. And then the third one's always, do you think it's just quicker and easier if you get it done? Yes, that's 90% of the time why I do it. I go, you're going to have to get over that. You're going to have to go, I am going to empower my team. It's not, some clients have this issue with handing stuff off because they feel like they're going to overload their team and it looks like they're trying to get rid of their work that they don't like and all that. And I say, no, no, that's part of when I talk about the sea change, you have to see yourself as a leader, not a manager anymore. A leader goes, hey, I'm going to empower you. I want this team to be self-managed. I want you to manage yourself, have the autonomy, have the ability to do this work so I can steer the ship and be strategic and work on things that are important for me to do to take care of the team and the company. So yes, one of the big parts of it is we talk about how many things can you really get rid of, even if you're not comfortable. Go through the effort and we'll get you there till you're comfortable.
That delegation is a real managerial skill, and not everybody gets taught how to do it, in my experience. And the reality is, people only get progression by taking opportunities to learn and grow, and that's where delegation comes from. They've experienced it from their bosses previously, and now it's their turn to share that and give those opportunities to their team.
Absolutely. It's a learned thing a lot of times. Like you say, the company, the organization, and the culture can make them feel they have to be taking all that on and dealing with all that. So they need to learn to be able to hand it off and build those new muscles.
So when you're working with your clients, and you said typically 5 months,
Yeah,
when you've finished, are they now stable in their new way of working, or are they really just at the foundation stage, you find?
I will tell you point blank, it depends on the client. It's funny because I've had some clients that at the beginning, I think, Wow, this is something that's been ingrained in them forever and ever, and they're really strong on how they have gone about this. It's going to be a little more time for them to change, but they turn around and be the ones that are the most open to it, most ready to jump in and really want to, change how they go through life and go through their work. So typically, what I like my clients to feel by the end of the engagement is that they have hit a growth spurt of some sort, because so many of them will feel when we first meet that I've been trying to do this for years. I just can't get to it. I don't know what to change or how to change. I don't have the tools. I don't have the time to think about it. I can't really reflect on it and all that. And I always say to them, what we want to do is get you on the way to an ideal state. So one of the reasons I use the C change model is the SEA for C is that it's going to be rougher at the beginning because they're in a very reactive mode and all that. And then by the time we get through our engagement, things have calmed down in their work and their life. Perfect example. I just had a client earlier, very intense lady, her words, really gets frustrated and angry with people and has alienated people, even though she's in a high position. She is on our 4.5 month period. And she said today, I'm starting to get to where I'm feeling more at peace in my day. I'm starting to proactively go, I'm not going to take this stuff personal. I'm going to take care of myself. And she's somebody I thought was going to be a lot harder to get along, but it does take time. You're changing behaviors and habits if you do it right.
And the core essence of this, and this is where the well-being piece comes in, I guess, is this time and task manager. Because the more aware of your time, we've all got time, but it's limited. The more you're aware of it and the more you control what you do with it, makes you feel more in control and less overwhelmed, is my experience. So
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead, please.
what what within the time and task manager program that you show them or you educate them with, how do you get them to be more aware of time and more in control of their own time?
Absolutely. Appreciate the question. Well, first and foremost, it's an inventory. You have to finally stop and go, okay, I'm going to actually pay attention to what is going on in my daily work. They have to gain awareness. And one of the first things I tell them, until you're ready to gain awareness, anybody that's coached and consulted, uh, I always joke with people, the first step on the road to recovery is admitting you have a problem. And say, gaining awareness is what that is going, okay, I know I'm overwhelmed. I know I'm reactive, but exactly what is contributing to that? What is doing it? Besides you personally in your mind going, I need to be like this and blah, 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 what is grabbing time out of your day? What is pulling energy from you? And so the tool, the first part of the tool is an inventory, is how things that you need to pay attention to. For instance, how many meetings are you going to? How many different times are you distracted? How many times are you looking at your email? How many times are you responding to people because you have an open door policy and let everybody and their mother come and bother you? How many times are you handling problems for your team because you're not telling your team, hey, get it 85% of the way there of a solution, and I'll help you in the last 15%, instead of them coming to you right off the bat saying, I'm not sure how to do this. So, how many times are you chasing people down, stakeholders, trying to get information, going to your dependencies of other divisions because they're not giving you the time of day? All these things that you need to sit down and go, all right, through this week. I always tell them, do it over a 2 to 3 week period so they can get a strong idea and write down every time they're running into something. I said, do it as you go, because that's the only way that you'll get awareness, is being present. And I'm not going to lie to you, Graham, they fight it tooth and nail at the beginning because it's more work for them. They're already stressed and overloaded, right? And so I tell them, take your time, make this a fun thing, don't overwhelm by it. But when they do that, it's amazing to me how many times I go, whoa, I had no idea. I realize, I'm in meetings 22 hours a week. I'm doing this, this, and this, and how many times I'm looking at my emails just in a 10-minute period, things like that. Then the second half of the, excuse me, the tool is going, okay, now that you have this information, what are you going to do with it? Here's what you need to do with it to make changes that will give you those three big things I talked about. More space in your day, more space in your calendar, and more space in your mind. The idea is you're optimizing yourself to be able to go, okay, now that I've been able to clear some things up on my schedule and my day and my mind, I'm more innovative. I'm more creative. I think more effectively. I'm more efficient and I'm more productive. It just kind of clears up for them. It's like the clouds parting, if that makes sense.
It makes lots of sense to me.
Yeah.
I can understand the challenge of helping people through that change, and I can understand the need to prioritize and, as you say, see the way they approach their work. I can, this is the stuff that I should be doing. This is the stuff that other people's doing. This is stuff that nobody should be doing, and working
Yeah.
it all through, and being more clinical, being more decisive about how they allocate, how they gift their time to each and every stakeholder that comes their way, so they can really focus on what is really important for their role. I can totally understand that.
Yeah, you were so right on that. I like the word prioritize because that's one of the things that's in the tool is people are doing too many things that they think they're supposed to be doing or should be doing. And I tell them one of the things you have to do is identify what is the key value deliverable your team is supposed to be providing, and then focus all your work and your priorities and your agendas on that. That's one of the big things. I think you're going to ask me something. Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, the next natural step from that is once they start to feel in control of their time, their well-being naturally lifts. They're not so stressed by, it's a
Yeah.
much vaunted circle of support, isn't it? You become more in control, you feel more in control, you are more in control, and that gives you a sense of calmness, gives you a sense of well-being. Have you, over the years, seen absolute transformations of executives who were perhaps close to complete burnout or collapse over 5, 6, 7 months, suddenly find themselves rejuvenated?
I have. And an interesting thing about that, Graham, is I was talking to a client yesterday, and I was telling him something that I found really interesting that I had had three clients in a row that when we first met, their goal was to figure out how they can move on to a different career, different path, different company. And out of the three, two of them decided after we talked and met, hey, I just wasn't handling it well. I like my company. I like my quality of life. And it was about when I talked about the sea change, they changed how they looked at their work, they changed how they experienced their day and how they approached it. What they found was they weren't that unhappy with their company and their coworkers and their quality of life. They just were burning out and they weren't seeing any light. They, as the one client said a couple of days ago, which was one of these two people, he said, I changed my relationship with my work. And once I did that, I started to feel more open and excited and looking for new challenges, but I didn't have to go to a new role or a new company to do it. So those were to me things that I felt like a real success. They got value out of it. They didn't have to, chase the grass is always greener on the other side kind of thing, which I did a lot when I was younger. They were able to make the grass greener where they were standing.
You must find this fantastically rewarding work, Dan, helping people overcome what are effectively very difficult situations into and making them life-changing for them.
It is. It's always been a passion, but it was something I felt, and I think I already kind of alluded to this at the beginning of the show, is when you do it for a whole company, you don't get that much satisfaction of feeling that real impact on somebody. Even if you did a good job for the organization and it was a real successful transformation, they don't pat you on the back. You don't see everybody dancing in the halls. That was expected, but 90% of the time they think it's going to go wrong, and it's always going to be very challenging. So when you deal with a client and you see them going, yeah, I'm feeling better, and at the end of the engagement saying, this really helped me. I had that growth spurt. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Those times that you're trudging through the days, those are the ones that get you through. They energize you. You go, yes, I made a difference, you know?
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Dan, there will be many people in our audience today who will relate to so much that you've said. If they want to know more, where can they find you? How can they reach you?
Well, I appreciate that. Absolutely. My company's called Impactful Performance. So it's impactfulperformance.com. My email is dan@impactfulperformance. And excuse me, I even, as part of being on your show, we talked about my sea change framework. I can like to invite the people to go to impactfulperformance.com/optimize, and they'll come to a page where they can download that tool for free. And so when they look at that tool, they can use it and they can get going. And if they have questions, they can contact me through email. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, that's how they can contact me, and hopefully they can get some good use out of that tool.
Dan, thanks for your time today. It's been a great joy speaking with you. I'm sure we'll have helped a lot of people today. Thanks so much. And
Hey, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time.
that's it for this edition of the Coaching Conversation, and we'll see you again next time.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.
So, there you have it, the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you found it useful, and I hope it did what it set out to do. As promised at the beginning of the programme, here is a special offer for you, our loyal audience. If you reach out to me at gwiley@sagegreen.com and mention this podcast, we'll make available to you a coaching program for you and or your team at a 50% discount. So where can you reach us? So it's definitely gwiley@sagegreen.com. You can also reach us at the executive mindset at sagegreen.com, and our website is clearly theexecutivemindset.co.uk. If you enjoyed this, do please leave us with a wonderful rating on Google. We'd really appreciate that. So nothing more for me to say now other than see you again soon.